We were looking at value labels in Stata. We started off looking at what do we mean by value labels, how they're different from variable labels, how we can assign value labels in Stata. Now we essentially want to see, once we create a value label, how can we modify it after creating it, right? So let's see how do you modify value labels after we created them. So what we do is we essentially do label define it. When we create value labels, we know we do the same, right? If we go back, when we're creating a value label over here, that's the same thing we do, right? We do label define, name a value label, right? The same thing we do over here, right? We do label define, we write name a value. And again, we write the value of the numeric variable, and then in double quotation marks, the value label for it, the next value of the numeric variable and the value label for it. The only difference will be now because you want to modify it after the comma, just write modify. That's all that you need to write. So the code is the similar when you're creating a value label. In the first step, right, when you're assigning a value label, so you create the label, right? And over there, obviously the code is the same. The only difference is now after the comma you put modify. You still write label define. You write the name of the value label that you want to basically change. And obviously we know the name of this value label we can get that from either label list, or we can use describe command for that. And then you write the value, and in double quotation marks the new label you want to assign to it. And then the only difference is after the comma you put a modify. So this is something you have to add it. Now the couple of things to note here. Number one, like we said, describe or label list will supply you the name of the value label that you want to add over here, that you want to modify. Now the next thing is you do not need to reattach the modified value label to the variable. This is done automatically, right? So you don't need to, like, for example, now once when we create a value label, the first step is to create it, and then the next step you have to assign it to the variable ourselves, right? Like if we go back, we have to assign it, right? We have to do this label value, variable name, value label name. But when you're modifying a value label, you do not need to reattach it to the variable, right? You don't need to do all of that again. You just need to modify it. Once you modify it, the modified labels are automatically attached to the same variable the value label was initially attached to. So you don't need to do the second step, right? You just need to, in the first step, change the way you define these labels. That's it. You don't need to reattach it. You also do not need to write out the full set of labels, only the one you want to change. Like, let's go back to the same example we had. Like, so we were doing this example of this, we were looking at this data set in Stata. Now say I wanted to, now say we have this, if I do label list, so we'll see the value labels, right? So we have this value label never married, which assigns which for 0 assigns the label has been married, and assigns to 1 the label never married. Say we wanted to change the label, this label for, where we want now 0 to have the label ever married rather than has been married. So obviously I don't need to, like, so what you're going to do is, which is now right now if you look at the data set, if we look at the data set right now we can see 0 is has been married, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to do label, we're going to write define, then we're going to write name of the value label, which you can see from here is nev slash underscore married. Okay, and then we write the value to which we want to assign a different label, right? For which we want to change the value label. We want to change the value label only for the value 0. So we don't need to specify 1 here, right? We will just specify the value for which you want to change the label, which is 0. And in double quotation marks, you put the new label, which is ever married, because you want to change the label from has been married to ever married, right? So we don't need to specify this for 1, right? You just specify the value that you want to change the label for, and then you, in double quotation marks, write the new label. And after comma, you write modify. I'll modify this. Now let's check if the change happened. Now if we go to 0, now we can see it has changed the value label to ever married, right? So in this way you can modify it. Now we can also drop value labels. It's very simple. You just do label, drop, and name a value label. Again, describe or label list will supply you name a value label. Say we wanted to drop the value label on the married variable. So we wanted to drop this value label, which takes value 0 for single and 1 for married. So first of all, we can just do describe married. If we did not know the name of the value label, we could do describe married, or we could do label list like we did over here, and we would get, okay, this is the value label, right? We get the name from either one of them, right? So we know, okay, the married variable has this value label. So you just do label right now. If you go to Stata, we can see, if you go to the married variable, we can see, right, the value 0 has the label single and the value 1 has the single married, right? But now if we go to this, sorry. So now if we, for example, do this, now I'll do label drop, and you just have to write the name of the value label. We've dropped it. Now if we browse and we see, now we have removed the value labels from this, right? They're no more. If the value label is no longer attached to this variable, we've dropped that value label. So this is all for this.